The first 13 minutes of this video focuses on SketchUp, and then I get into roof geometry detailing at the 13-minute mark. So if that's what you came for, you might want to skip ahead. Here goes. This is Tony from Historic American Homes, and I'm back with a quick update on the progress on this Victorian farmhouse that I'm working on. But I'm going to treat this more as a quick tips, SketchUp quick tips. There are some things I'm doing here as far as actually making the model in SketchUp that I think might be useful to people. Now, I'm not sure that this is the best way to do it, or it's certainly not the only way to do it, but it's a way that's working for this particular situation I've got. So here's the house here, and it's got a rather complicated roof. We've got this octagonal piece, we've got a main gable, we've got a couple of cross gables, we've got a dormer, and they intersect at different levels. So in order to work out the design, I found it easier to work on them as separate pieces, in discrete pieces, each one in its own group. I'm going to turn everything off except for the structure. And let's cut that section. Okay, so I've turned everything off except for the upstairs, the second floor walls, and the roof. You can see the roof sitting on the second floor walls here. And if we look at the grouping, here's my grouping for roof, and that's the structural part of the roof. Now we go in here and we see that each of these is a separate object. In creating the model, I find it easier to work out the shapes this way. But this creates a problem when it comes time to turn this into an actual drawing. For us, the main reason is got to do with sections. I will now turn the sections on. Section cuts, section planes. And here's my section plane that I'm going to put it in a few different spots, and you can see what's happening now. As I use the section plane to move, you can see, okay, here's a good point. We're right about at the center of the octagon. Each part of each group has its own outline. So the right-hand part of the main gable, there's a line here at this edge, and there's an edge here. And the same with the left-hand side of the main gable. There's an edge here and an edge here. These are lines that I do not want to have appear on my final drawings. I don't want this line to show because there's no line there in reality. It's all one piece. It's a truss. Also, the octagon is a separate piece. This little filler is a separate piece. This piece of it has to go. So this is not going to appear correct when I do my sections on the drawings in the program called Layout. So what I'm doing now that I've got the main piece of roof, the main concept for the roof worked out, is I'm copying the individual objects over here 50 feet over. It's a nice fixed round number that I can remember. And I am one by one copying them over and exploding the group and incorporating it into another group. So for example, in the original model, that left portion of the main gable is one group, and this wing comes off of it is a separate group. They are two separate objects. Now I have brought those two over and turned them into one group. They're all inside of one group now. And in doing that, I can then erase the pieces of it that overlap and that don't need to show. So when I get the section for that part of the building, you can compare the result. You can compare these two here. Back here. So we see that on the left-hand part, it's all one piece, no extraneous lines. Whereas on the main model, where they are separate groups, I have this chunk right in here. So that's the technique I'm using, which is to make the roof in separate groups in order to work out the geometry. But then once I've got the geometry worked out, make a copy off to the side so I don't lose the original in case I mess anything up. And in my copy, join and clean up all the pieces until they form one large group. And then once I'm satisfied that I've got the correct result, I will take the original roof, a bunch of groups, move it away, move the cleaned up version into its place. I may just push that old version aside and put it on my tag called always off, concept always off. Put it on my always off tag, and I just leave that turned off, and then I have the geometry in the future if anything goes wrong and I want to come back to it. And I'll probably hang on to it that way until I've gotten to the very end of the modeling, and when I'm 100% confident the modeling is complete, then I'll go back into the always off tag and I'll delete all that extra stuff just to clean up the model and keep the file size down and not have extra things in there that might get confusing. So that's the tip here that I think can be useful, combining groups and merging them together. So what I do is I pick one of them as my primary group. I take the second group that connects to it. I delete the second group, Control X. I open the first group, double-clicking on the first group. I paste the second group into the first group, and then I explode the second group. Now its geometry is merged with the geometry of the first group. And then I clean it all up. So I'm going to pause this here, and then I'll pick it up and do one more piece showing you the steps. Okay, I am set to move another piece over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this group on the right side from my main model and select it, and I'm going to press M for move, Control to make that a copy instead of moving the original. You can see that it's moving a copy, and you can see that it's on the red axis. I will type 50 and the foot mark. If you look in the bottom right corner of the screen, you'll see it says distance 50 feet at the very bottom right, and then I'll hit enter. And so that moves a copy into the position of my new roof on the left. Now what I'm going to do is Control X to delete it, and then I'm going to go into my main group. Here I am in the main group. Now I just double clicked on it to get inside. Now I'm going to do Control Shift V, and that is paste in place. So it pastes the copy that I moved over and deleted into the exact position where it was before. And as you see, it's still a group. Now it's a group within the other group. So these planes and these surfaces and edges are all I can select, but when I come over to the right here and click on the group that I just copied in, that's still a group. So I will press X, which will explode it. And now it is also I can also select its faces and edges as a part of the group. So it has merged into this group. And if we take a look, we can see that there's lines, like there's a line here. That was the edge of that group before I exploded it, and there's a line there. These are lines that I don't need, that are not really helpful, as they don't define geometry, and they're not going to express some kind of important information in the final drawing. In fact, they may end up being confusing in the final drawing. So now that this has all been merged into one group, I can E for erase. I can selectively erase those lines that I no longer need from the original group that I copied in. Sometimes you will find that there are lines inside, and they're not easy to see. K is my keyboard shortcut. You'll find it under View, Edge Style, Back Edges. So I'm going to press K, and that allows me to see kind of X-ray vision into the model. Yep, there's a line right here, and there's another line there. That is now currently no geometry lines that I don't need anymore. So I can delete that one. I can delete that one. having that back edges visible is really helpful when it comes to doing this kind of cleanup work, but you got to be extra careful because when you click on the line that you want to erase, it will erase stuff behind as well if you're not careful. So before you finish this step, you want to make sure you didn't accidentally erase something you want to keep. There's another one over here. And let's take a look up at the ridge. Not always easy to tell. You just have to get in there and look around. See, I think there's something going on up there that looks extraneous. And if you make a mistake and delete something you decided you need to keep, well, there's always Control Z. Having trouble figuring this part of it out here. Yeah, I guess that's all right. Well, if I find more lines to delete, I'll delete them when the time comes. There's one. Let's see if I delete this one, what happens. I think that's okay. I didn't lose anything important. This stuff can go. Now I'm going to make sure I didn't lose any surfaces that I need. Any faces. That all looks clean. That there is the overhang. Oh, there's a line I can get rid of right front and center. You see, all those lines are going to show up. All those extra lines are going to show up in the final drawings, and it'll make things look confusing and weird. And people will have a hard time understanding. They'll be like, why is there a line there? What am I looking at? And in fact, it's just a remnant of unclean drafting. Well, I think I got them all. Anyway, I won't bore you with any more of this. I think you got the idea of the process. I've got to figure out how this gap is going to get filled, this space here, because this roof comes down and hits that octagon. So I got to work that out, and then I will merge the octagon into this piece. That's what I'm working on now, and I will show you that as a part of the final step. But I'm going to show you one other thing here, and this is not SketchUp. This is roof detailing. We have a roof sloping down to the left here, and the octagon has a roof sloping down to the right. And when those two roofs meet, they create a straight horizontal line, which cannot drain. You've got water coming down this roof and water coming down this roof, and it has nowhere to go once it gets here. So what you do is you keep the shingles back a few inches on each side, and you put in a piece of sheet metal that's been shaped, and it has this triangular arrangement. This is called a cricket. And what happens is when the water's coming down the roof and reaches this spot, it reaches the cricket and gets diverted to each side, and the water coming down from the turret gets down to the cricket, and some of it goes this way and some of it goes that way. I haven't finished it all yet. I've got to carry it all the way around, but that's how you handle drainage on two roofs that meet, that are parallel when they meet. Now, when they're not parallel with each other, it's not a problem. Like this roof and this roof plane meet, but they meet at a slope, not a horizontal line. They meet at a slope, so the water can naturally come down. I've got to clean this up, but it'll just flow. It'll just come down and flow around and down. And here it'll flow around and down. So that's crickets. And when you're doing shingle roofs, at a valley, you typically keep the shingles back. I think it's 3 inches on each side. I'll have to look that up. I don't remember if it's 3 or 6. Anyway, you keep the shingles back, and you have special flashing that goes in the valley. So I'll be showing that because when it comes time to do the roof plan, I want to be able to see. I want to be able to see that stuff on the roof plan. So there's my roof plan. There are the valleys, and there's the cricket, and those are gonna be valleys wrapping around that way, and a smaller one this way. It's gonna be valleys over here. All right, that's enough for this video. I hope there was some useful information here. If you enjoyed this, please click the like button, please subscribe, and check out the other videos. I've got a bunch of videos on quick tips for SketchUp, and I'm also showing the progress of this design at its various stages. Have a great day. Bye-bye.